2025's The Spotlight is on you. Prep Baseball's updated class rankings march on with the current juniors getting a fresh look. I'm Cory McCartney, that's Shooter Hunt. And while I am no barista, I get to play one here on Coffee and Curveballs. And Shooter, what I'm pouring for you is a class who's a seemingly defined top five. What are your overall thoughts on a class that remains headlined by Ethan Holiday and Seth Hernandez?
I think there's some star-studded power at the top, especially there. But the depth is immense. We're going to talk about some guys upclassing, which has aided the strength of this group. But those guys at the top, Ethan Holiday, I mean, I'm sure clubs already dream about, can we get him? Can we get him here? Can we get him at this pick? But he's not alone. There's a lot of guys in this group.
So you've got Holiday, Hernandez, Brady Ebel, Coy James, and Xavier Nines making out that top five. And while that group remains the same, we've had a shakeup within the top 10. And I go there because, Shooter, you've put together a list on prepbaseballreport.com of the players within the top 100 that you've got your sights on to make big jumps this spring. That includes two newcomers to the top 10 in the class, the reclassified Quentin Young, the LSU commit out of California, who comes in sixth, and Prep Baseball All-American Game MVP Josh Hammond out of Wake Forest commit, who now sits in 10th.
Yeah, we were talking about Quentin Young, who at the underclass area code games that close out the summer, that was the best prospect there. He was a 26 then, and I was talking to some of the scouts in attendance, and I said, shoot, he could upclass to 2024 right now, and we'd be looking at a potential first rounder. So Young could definitely make a bigger jump. You talked about he is that LSU commit. They've done a great job of getting guys to campus there, but he's got great bloodlines. It's easy to treat him. He's 6'4", he steps on the field. You know that guy's out there. He moves really well defensively, which is says a lot about just how good he is on both sides of the ball. And then you talk about Josh Hammond, who we've spoken extensively about after he has that breakout performance as the most valuable player at our inaugural All-American game. Which is he better at, though? On the mound, it's filthy stuff. I think his slider might be the best secondary pitch of any high school player right now. That's how filthy it is. But then he can also swing it. And I just hate to give up on the bat at any point. So we're going to let him watch. We're going to watch him do it on both sides of the ball. And I'm sure when he ultimately hears his name called, they'll call it from both ways.
Well, going off that All-American Game pedigree with him and two more players in your list that were also part of the proceedings in Milwaukee, and that's Georgia-bound outfielder Ty Peoples, who now sits 12th overall, and shortstop Carson Brumbaugh, the Tennessee commit, and he's now 22nd overall in this class.
Yeah, and talk about Peoples, he's been a personal favorite of mine for over a year, probably I'd say 18 to 24 months, just the way he can track the ball. And what stood out at the All-American game, yes, he showed off some sneaky power throughout the workouts, taking BP at the Brewers Stadium there in Milwaukee, lifting the ball. But then the at-bats in games, and we get 3 at-bats, you're facing a guy for 1 inning. It's not easy. Those guys are dudes on the bump. And he was tracking like it was nothing. So he did a great job there, had a hit. I think he plays center field, but his upside, he doesn't know how good he is yet, and he's only going to get better. And they talk about Brumbaugh, where it's just freaky. I mean, it's crazy hand speed, crazy bat speed. He doesn't get cheated. He can hop on the mound. He's up in the mid to upper 90s. But the most important thing about him, and the reason why he's rising here, is because he has that chip on his shoulder. He thinks he's the best. And Ethan Holiday is really good. They're both in the state of Oklahoma. And nothing's burning Brumbaugh more than seeing that he's the number 2 player in Oklahoma. He thinks he's the best. He wants to be the best. I can't say anything more about a guy who thinks something like that, because those are the guys that go out there and prove it.
Yeah, find motivation wherever you can. So let's go from one of Prep Baseball's crown jewel events to another, underscoring, I think, the job that the state directors do. You've got your sights on a whopping 5 future games alumni on this list, and that's Brock Kettleson, Will Craddock, Landon Harmon, Slater DeBrune, and this past future game MVP, Danny Wallace.
Yeah, and the future games are a great proving ground. What we love about it, internally, we're constantly talking, right? We have over 100 scouts, boots on the ground, and we're talking about players nonstop, especially uncommitted guys. All our state guys are in constant contact with college coaches. When we get to the future games and you have 600 uncommitted guys, you finally get to let them go out there and perform in front of 400 college coaches. That's what's great. Kettleson at the top, a big thing about Kettleson, you're coming out of NorCal, which is probably the big 4 with Georgia, Florida, Texas, California. NorCal steps into that 5th hole because of the prospects they churn out. He will not be 18 before draft day. He's a left-handed hitter. It's freaky athleticism. It's 6'3", 185. I just love the swing. I'm betting on that throughout next spring and then into the summer for him to get even better. And then Will Craddock, the kid out of South Carolina, who really shined at the future games at 6'3", 6'4", 195, looked the part at shortstop, might have to shift over to third base if he gets any bigger, but the bat will really help him carry from either spot on the left side. We probably had him too low coming out of the future games. His bat the ball abilities, the fact that he really does not strike out often, that barrel accuracy really stands out. That's something that really shines for him. Danny Wallace was another guy who moves up. You're talking about a cold weather bat. So he's from the state of Nebraska, and he just has to keep doing it, which he has done. He goes out there. It's a short, compact stroke. Shoot, he broke a metal bat. That's how hard he swings at the future games. But he can also pitch. He's in the low 90s. And I swear there's something in the water in the state of Nebraska that there's just some athletes that just churn out of there. It's like they come out of those cornfields. They're ready to go. They can swing the bat. They got those strong forearms. But Danny Wallace is one of those big time guys from the future games and obviously showed it as the MVP.
Yeah, Wallace, but it's just ridiculous. I mean, Oklahoma State committee just shows you 102-mile-an-hour exit velo with the plate and then hops on the mound and ends in the 90s with that nasty curveball. It's just absolutely not fair with this kid. I also did want to take a second here to talk about one of the biggest risers in the class who's also on this list of players, and that's Florida shortstop Eddie Zahn. The Miami commit goes 124 spot shooter, now sitting 37th in the class.
And honestly, it was probably an oversight by us internally after the summer because he was great at the MPI. And in pre-workouts at the MPI, we were looking at Eddie Zahn, a guy we followed for the last 18 months or so. Okay, we're checking in on this Florida shortstop, this infielder, and he looked outstanding at the MPI. And then we went back to re-up with kind of a clean here at the end of the fall. Hey, this Zahn kid should be way higher. He's really good. And it's an impactful bat, right-handed hitter. We're looking at this Florida 25 class, which is still trying to settle itself. It's kind of got some out-of-state guys there, IMG at the top. Who are the guys from in-state that are the dudes? And I think Eddie Zahn's got a good chance to be that guy because he can really swing it.
As of this recording, there are 7 players in the top 100 that remain uncommitted. You're putting your focus so a little bit deeper and diving into those players outside the top 200 that have yet to make their commitments. Let's start with the pitchers because all of these guys have been future games or junior future games participants. You've got Isaac Duty, Kentucky's top-ranked righty, fellow righty Luke Ryersey, who's the #1 player in Minnesota, and Utah's #1 righty Case Beams.
Yeah, and those top 100 guys, the schools all know about them right now. They're going on their visits and doing their thing. Isaac Duty's a guy who I was hoping to see at our future games, but he's also a quarterback. So the football summer schedule did not allow him to get down to LakePoint for that, where I think he would have exploded. But at 6'4", 220, he's also a quarterback. Obviously athletic, was up to 90 late in the summer. I think the high ceiling's been set for him. He moves well. There's feel for the secondary. You're betting on those athletes. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he's got coming out in the spring. You talk about Luke Ryersey, another football guy. This dude's a 5-star punter. So I think his recruiting is probably going to be steered towards what he can do out on the gridiron, but he can really move down the mound. He's a two-way prospect on the diamond. I think it's probably more of a pitcher when it comes down to it. But the fact that he can punt, it's probably going to be a big school, I'd imagine, especially as a 5-star guy. So we'll see what ends up with him. And then Beams, Utah kid, and talking with Jeff Scholzen, our scouting director there in Utah. We got to see him at the future games. There's just some freaky, I've been saying freaky athleticism, but there's a lot of those guys on here. He can really spin the baseball, right? The velocity has not jumped yet. I think it will in the spring. Not worried about that at all. But the fact that he can rip off breaking balls for strikes at will is something that stands out. And he does not get cheated when he's getting through that. He's looking to embarrass guys. So look for Beams to make a huge jump this spring as well.
A pair of position players, Cooper Klazera, a catcher out of Arizona, Georgia outfielder Nathan Nance. What do you like about them?
Klauser's swing, I love late in the summer. Just moves so well through impact. He covers the plate with ease. Just the lag in the zone. He's also a left-hand hitting catcher, which those guys are coveted by the college recruiters. I'm sure he's getting some calls, but those who have not seen him yet will want to get out there. He can really catch behind the plate. About a 1.9 pop time in event with an 80-mile-an-hour arm from the crouch. He can just really do it. So I'd expect some big things for him and for him even to make some jumps in the future on this list. And then you talk about Nathan Nance, who I love the progression from the start of the summer to a great event that he went to there in Georgia with your guys. He just looks the part. He's a 6'6" runner, outfielder, right-handed hitter. The swing has really progressed, and I expect him to have a big spring as well.
Yeah, Hudson Graham just absolutely raving about the bat for Nathan
Mhm.
Nance. So excited to see the progression there. Everyone, shooter, likes to be in on the band before they hit it big, and we are no different here on Coffee and Curveball. So let's talk sleepers within these rankings. A strong group of arms here, including two future Wake Forest arms, and Marcelo Harse and Evan James, Alabama bound Mikhail Holden, and South Carolina commit Cameron Appenzeller.
Yeah, I think Marcel at the top is one of the younger guys. I think he turns 18 just before the draft. But at 6'4", 6'5", right-hander, he's from a New Jersey Power at Seton Hall Prep. Was up into the low 90s. I'd expect more of that. I'll be heading to the East Coast and probably catching him this spring. I think he's going to make a jump. It comes really easily. He really has a heavy fastball. So I'll be checking him out. You said Mikhail. What I like about Mikhail, he's at Hoover High, which produces some great prospects there. He catches, he plays the field. There's so much going on. And it's almost like he gets thrown in there to pitch late. It's a powerful arm, and it is a wicked breaking ball. Downer 12-6 curveball. He can tunnel the high spin fastball off of that. I think there's some serious upside on the bump, so I'm looking forward to seeing that from Holden. Evan Jones will likely not be a sleeper once the end of the spring happens. He will go into next summer, I believe, as one of the premium arms in this class. And Pennsylvania is churning those guys out nonstop. It's that low vertical approach, hoppy fastball. The frame stands out. He's going to be a huge winner. And then Appenzeller, who committed to South Carolina this fall. I mean, shoot, left-handers like that don't just grow on trees. So you got to dream on that guy. It comes easy. It's polished. I think his velocity will jump. And I think when we're talking about this at the end of next summer, we'll be looking at a guy like Appenzeller, who is kind of jumping into the top of those left-handers in the group. But then you talk about the one outfielder we put on here is a kid named Jordan Kievman. He's from Ohio. He's going to be heading to IMG for the spring down in Florida, get some more at bats. I love the way the bat works from the left side. And I think he's got a chance to be one of those guys that really explodes throughout the spring. I've talked to some of our guys, Jordan Cairo in Ohio and the rest of that Ohio bunch, who said, you need to go check this kid out in Florida. So I'll be making my way down there to check him out. He's a Louisville recruit.
Are you also going to be making it out to Hawaii to see Logan Hama, who is a recent USC commit?
You know what? I think I have to. I'm gonna have to get that cleared internally to get a couple of trips to Oahu, the Big Island, Maui. There are a ton of prospects. I know Dan Cox is trying to get me down there as soon as possible.
Tell me a little bit about Hama and why you think he's so interesting.
Well, another left-handed bat, and along with Bruin Agbayani, these two guys in the 25 class are going to have a lot of cross-checkers booking travel to the islands, but really can get into his base. He's got that firm, wide base that he moves well through from the left side, quick hands, can turn that barrel. I think he's only going to get better, and these USC guys obviously did a great job in committing.
We are not done with our dissection of Prep Baseball's updated rankings, with the 2026 debuting December 8th and the first look at those 2027s coming on December 15th. So make sure you stick with us here on Coffee and Curveballs for so much more. Until next time, I'm Cory McCartney. That's Shooter Hunt, and we'll see you at the Diamond.